Hello, everyone. So this is 2021, February already, and we are in our first year, second month of the year. We are doing this Young Titans platform. Let me bring in Ron. I've been working with him for some time, and then we will get started. And to make it a little bit easier, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have some kind of slide on the screen so you guys can understand more. It's not only me talking, so it'll be easy for you to follow. And let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so if you can see that, let me go ahead. Okay, so if you can see that, let me know if you cannot from the people who are on the board. We have done multiple value added session with various speakers, coaches, mentors, and leaders. Our grand opening was August 8, 2020 for YTP Young Titans platform. We have discovered that 2020 has changed everybody's life, possibly for good. Let's keep going. YTP, Young Titans platform, where young professionals and entrepreneurs join after their college graduation or when they are in the workforce or to propel their career, get inspired and become a part of thriving community. If you are not a part of it, you are missing out. So subscribe us, like us, and get involved. This is another event that is, there is another event also that's coming up, which we're going to give you a good surprise a little bit later or in our coming sessions. Please share this live or recording to your friends, family, and others, and like our page, subscribe our channel. Please send us live questions in the Facebook comments, and you can always email us at info@unextleadership.com. That's info@u, the letter U, nextleadership.com. We will add a few parts and details this year, and that's already started. Starting from this week, next week we'll have the panel also. And the things that we are going to talk about for young professionals are the personal growth, career growth, business growth, relationship growth, which is the topic today. There is a good surprise for you waiting for us today also. We'll be looking for few ambassadors for YTP this year. We'll make some young professionals involved and possibly giving them the opportunity to volunteer also. YTP is basically the gap that fills in the gap from what you know today and what you need to know for you to succeed. Your unique story begins from your home, school, college, university, and company. Your career extends to the globe, to the global world as you progress in life. After going through a million job search or and many relationship from your childhood and preparing for an endless, your life. Different chapters of your life and all these, then you are at this stage today, and thank you for being part of it. Whether you are an introvert or extrovert, choosing a career and using your relationship for and growing that becomes very challenging sometimes, or sometimes overwhelming. Sometimes you don't know what to do. So we're going to talk about that. But before that, just quickly, who are we? Let us just get introduced to some of the organizers and speakers. First of all, myself, I'm Sheikh Rahman. I'm the founder of Unext Leadership and YTP, Young Titans platform, that we are using this today to come to you and help you guys. Then we have Raj Kapoor, who is not here today. Ron Cooper, who is here today with me always and always supporting. Ron and Marty are retired U.S. Air Force and CIA officers. They are in their 52 years of their marriage and are relationship coaches. They serve valuables to others through their Cooper Culture organizations. He spoke at YTP a couple times and is pretty much here on a regular basis. Then we have Rian Roberts, Arti Moore, Kamrul Hassan, Glenn Hodges, who is not here today, from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then, of course, today we have Dr. Jamaluddin, who is a chemistry professor in Copen University. And he's the founder and director of nanotechnology there. Then we have Dr. Halida Akhtar, and she is also with us on almost on a regular basis. Currently, Dr. Halida Akhtar is International Health Department at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Her achievement and rewards will be very long, and we'll be here for a long time if we want to just talk about that. So I'm going to skip that. And with that note, just to let you know that she's the award winner of United Nations Population in 2006, and there's a lot more. Now, let me introduce, actually, there's a few more people that I wanted to say, but there's a lot more people who are involved with us and helping us grow this platform. And the things that we're going to talk about today are this is about relationship, and we're going to talk about the 7 L's in relationship. How was your life in 20? To give you some example, what are the things that you might be asking questions on, or what are the things we might be able to discuss on, or the things that I got some input or some questions about. Those are, how was your life in 2020 with your personal or home relationship? How was your life in 2020 with your work relationship? What changed in your work life and relationship in 2020? What will change in your relationship and work and career in 2021 and going forward? Do you think some more knowledge and guidance on relationship will strengthen you or your career? What preparation do you suggest for others? So having said that, let us bring our actual our guest of the day today. That is Ed. Ed, who is Ed? Ed has been serving, let me just show it one more time. So Ed has been serving in various leadership roles for a long time, 20 years or more. He's been working with students, teachers, administrators, and strengthening communities and many others. He is an executive director with John Maxwell team, a coach, trainer, mentor. He is a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, a speaker. He's in the advisory board. He hosted the TV shows, and he is my good friend. And he has been instrumental in building different people in their leadership and the community. So let me not wait and to introduce more and take up your time. Rather, let's bring up Ed Reed in our platform today. Ed, the platform is yours. Please.
Well, thank you very much. And it's such an honor just to be here with you and to see some old friends and some new friends. It's definitely want to just commend all of you for the work that you're doing and your dedication to helping to empower and equip the next generation of leaders. So you all are to be applauded, and I'm so honored just to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wants to kind of introduce or anything, please go ahead. If not, Ed, you can actually start.
Hey, let's get started. And I'll invite the other people here that are on the platform. Feel free to chime in. Feel free to ask questions. And let's let this be a conversation that we have. I'll share some information with you around building powerful relationships. And one of the things that I've learned really like last 30 years, it's amazing as you go through life, if you don't pause to realize that you've aged over time, you might feel like you're younger than what you really are. And what I've noticed on this journey is that I can be so focused on just wanting to get better, wanting to grow, wanting to build meaningful relationships that turn into powerful relationships because of the work that we can do when we collaborate together, the lives that we can touch. And so, what I've been working on over the last several years is really looking at how do you do it? How do you build those relationships? So, I created something called the 7 L's, and we're going to focus on the 7 L's for building powerful relationships. And now you might wonder why 7 L's and why is that important? Well, what we know is that leadership is influence. Now, we know it goes deeper than that, but it starts with influence, and you have to build relationships so that you can become influential. Now, we also know there are different spheres of relationships. There's your inner circle. Then, after your inner circle, then it becomes those who are right outside of that inner circle. But then there's another group that's outside of the inner circle, and then it gets bigger and it gets bigger. But what you want to be able to do is build healthy relationships with people. So how do we do that? The first L is we got to let go. We have to let go of attempting to control others. Sometimes some folks who are new in leadership and some who've been around for a while, there's this place where they believe that they can control other people. And we have to let go of trying to control people. The other piece is really important, especially in a global society where we all work, and you might work for a multinational company. And it's so important to let go of misperceptions. Let go of misperceptions, stereotypes. These things can create false impressions and they can really hinder building these powerful relationships. What else do we need to let go of? For ourselves to let go of, we have to let go of limiting beliefs. Sometimes we talk ourselves out of things that we need to do and that we're capable of doing because of our limiting beliefs. And the last piece we want to let go of, you got to let go of unhealthy relationships. Let go of unhealthy relationships because they can become toxic. And it's hard to build strong, powerful relationships if you have toxic relationships because you can get contaminated. And once we begin to let go, the second L that we want to focus on, and this might be tough for some people, and that is love. Yes, I said love. You see, not the Hollywood style of love, but just the love where we have compassion for other people simply because they're people. You know, when we look at love, love is actually the starting point for productive and healthy relationships. It is the foundation of all healthy relationships. And it is that it actually is the most powerful emotion that we have. And so when we look at love, what am I talking about as a leader? As you're growing in your leadership, look at the compassion you have for other people. And let me be clear, love for others doesn't mean you allow people to walk all over you. You don't become someone's doormat, but you care about people. And when we start from a place of love, it prepares us to go to the third L, and that is to look. And so once we let go of certain things and we come with an open heart and we care about people, now we got to look. Now, what am I talking about when I say look? What I'm talking about is as you're building a relationship with someone, pay attention to them. Make sure you notice them. Make sure that they're visible, and pay full attention to understand what you see and what you don't see. Think about it. Maybe you're supervising someone or you're leading a group of people to take care of a project. And maybe you're having a meeting and you can look and see who's engaged, who's disengaged, who's clear on what you have to say, but who's not clear, but they're afraid to speak up because they're intimidated by what someone else on the team might say. And so they might have something to contribute, but they hold back. And so as a leader, you got to pay attention to your people. And you also have to begin to, as you're looking, I challenge you to examine your perceptions. So ask yourself, what I'm looking at, this is what I think I see. Now, do I see what I actually think I see, or do I need to get a closer look? And so when we look, we also want to process through two filters. What I see, how does that affect how I feel? And what I see, how am I processing that through what I think? And so what we want to be able to do, we got to look from the filter of the heart and the filter of the mind. Now, the fourth L is listen. And when we listen, once again, we're engaged, we're paying full attention, but now we're listening to see what we actually hear and what we don't hear. So when we listen, I'll tell you, I call it the ATV. Check out your people's ATV. What is the ATV? The attitude, the tone, and the volume. Sometimes you lose so much in an email that you just won't get when you have a conversation with your people. So sometimes you got to pick up the phone. Sometimes you got to go on to a video conferencing so that you can clearly hear attitude, tone, and volume. I know I was working with a client who was supervising a team, and the client was trying to figure out how could they increase sales, and there were some challenges with some of their sales reps. And I said, well, you got to do an ATV checkup. He said, hey, what is the ATV checkup? It's the attitude, tone, and volume. Watch how your people interact with their prospects. Is the attitude warm and friendly and inviting? Is the attitude over the top and arrogant? How's the tone? How's the volume? You see, when I used to do sales, one of the things that allowed me to be successful in my sales when I worked in sales is that I would focus on building relationships, and I made a promise that I would never sell somebody something that they didn't need. Well, I know I could have, but that would be problematic because then it becomes an integrity issue. And so it goes back to the second L, which is love. But so let's review. We let go, we love, we look, and we listen. Now, when we put what we see and what we hear, when we put those together and what we feel, let's not underestimate the power of emotions, because let's face it, the majority of a decision is often made by how people feel. And if that wasn't the case, you wouldn't see so many commercials that have nothing to do with the product that's being sold, but everything to tap into what you see, what you hear, in an effort to make you feel that you need that particular product or service. So we know that emotions play a role in the decision making. So what do we do to put it all together? So the fifth L is learn. See, once you come with an open heart, that's compassion. You really look and you listen. Now you have to process the information, process the experience. So now you're learning, you're putting all this together so that you can gain insight and a deeper understanding of the people that you want to build a relationship with. Now, people know if you're just trying to get over on them, or if you really care about them, if you care about what they value, people will know. But the only way they really find out is how you treat them. And you got to learn. You got to learn these things. And so when we process through our heart and through our mind, we are better positioned to really think and evaluate the relationship, the situation, the challenges. One thing for leaders, and I'm in the middle of teaching a leadership class right now on developing the leader within you. And one of the things our group talked about the other day, it is problems. And I guarantee as a leader, you will always be presented with problems. And the problem is an opportunity, but understand this. The relationship you have with your team, the relationship you have with your clients, the relationships you have with your contractors, your suppliers, whatever business you might be involved, whether you're in nonprofit, for profit, education, whatever sector, we all have to work with people and we depend on people. So we've got to build these relationships. So as we learn was the fifth L. The sixth one is we got to live it out. Imagine how you feel when a person takes the time to get to know you, and if you shared some things with them, and they it seems like they got you, they understand you, but then they don't act like they really get it. It is about how you live it out, right? So as leaders, what we have to do, and living it out is really about being authentic. It is really about the actions. You see, because it's one thing to be knowledgeable, but it's a higher level to act on the knowledge that you have. See, your actions based on what you've learned speaks higher than letting people know what you know. And so when we use our actions and we allow those actions that are regulated by our heart and our mind, now we're modeling that we get it, that we truly get it. And remember, your actions are a powerful nonverbal message to others. And as we let go, love, look, listen, learn, and live, the last L is now it's time to lead. And let's be honest, leadership can be challenging, leadership can be messy, but leadership is essential to have advancement, to move people through challenges. And so, what does that look like to lead? Influencing from connecting by who you are, not your title. It's not your title. Title can give you a certain level of authority, but it doesn't necessarily make you influential. It's the relationship that you build that will add to your ability to influence others. You know, what is often said, respect is earned through trust. Admiration is gained from authenticity. So we got to impact hearts by receiving the hand. So once your hand is received, then you are in a strategic position to make an impact. And so I just want to spend a little time with you this morning and just go through these 7 L's. There's 7 simple L's, but when you put them all together and you begin to really say, okay, target, who do I want to build a relationship with? And so I'm going to challenge you right now here on the spot. I want you to identify 7 people that you want to strengthen your relationship with so that you can have a more powerful relationship with those 7 people and apply these 7 principles, the 7 L's that I've outlined today. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you do that consistently over the next 30 days. I guarantee that you will have a stronger relationship because they say people don't care until they know how much you care. And you can't tell them you care about them. You got to show them. And so I'm going to turn it back over to you, to the team here, and we can answer some questions, but I don't want to take up too much of your time this morning. And so I'll come right back to you guys.
Sure. Yeah. Anybody has any questions you want to ask from here?
Okay, Reed, a wonderful speech indeed. As an educator, I have just a question. Uh, to build up the relationship with faculty or student, in the academia, is a challenging, something. Is there any tips that you can share with us to help the relationship between uh, students and faculty?
Sure. So when we look at students, and I've been in education as a student for a number of years. I've been fortunate to study from a variety of professors. I got a couple of master's degrees, and what I've looked at, just those relationships that have been the best, is a two-way street, right? But as the faculty person, you want to build a relationship with the students. Really begin to take time to start off the class with, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" Something as simple as, "How are you doing? Does anybody have some challenges that they're working through right now that might be somewhat distracting or trying to stay focused?" I just want to check on you. I have something I call it a walk. Is the leader's walk. WALK. So the first thing we want to do, whether it's your students, whether it's your colleagues, when you're with a group of people, the W, do the wellness check-in. Hey, how's it? Especially now more than ever. W, wellness check-in. Hey, how are we doing? How's your family? Is everything going okay? How's everybody doing? Right? The A is access. Hey, do you have what you need in order to do the things that you're trying to accomplish. So if I'm a professor and I'm talking to students, hey, does everybody have the resources? Was everybody able to get access to the platform I wanted you to use? Did everybody have access to the journals, articles I wanted you to read? I just want to make sure, because sometimes people might not have access and they're barely hanging in there, but they'll never tell you that they're barely hanging in there because they don't want to be judged. Right? And then the L, right? The L is leadership. So wellness check-in, the access check-in, then the leadership. Hey, there might be some people in our group that are not going to speak up, but they might talk to you. So I need each and every one of you. We're going to be a team of leaders, not the leader and a bunch of followers. We're going to lead together because we're in the team. We can accomplish so much more as a community of leaders than we can as a leader and followers. So what I need you all to be able to do, I need you in your smaller groups. So let's say you got a class of 100, class of 50. You might have to, look at who's going to rise to the top and lead, and say, I need you to do the same wellness check-in with others in the class. I need everybody to find at least 2 people that you could talk to, so that you can check on. Because remember, we are more than just a professor and students. We're a team on a mission, because the work that we do is so important that it's going to make a difference, or else we shouldn't be here at all. So then that's the leader. Employ others to lead. They don't have to have the title, but they can always find a friend. Check on them. Then the K in the leader's walk, the K is knowledge, right? And that is, hey, I'm glad you're doing well. It looks like you got what you need, and I'm glad you wanted to check on others. But just wanted to make sure, do you know how to utilize the resources you have access to? On the John Maxwell team, I was on the president. I'm on the president advisory council, and one of the things areas I volunteered in was the onboarding. And so I would onboard new members from all over the country. And while they had access to our tremendous amount of resources, some of them felt that they were drinking water out of a fire hydrant because there's so much. And so you have to just stop and check on people. Access is great. Now think about this, and we'll take the next question. As you become more proficient in how to use Zoom, and you got a colleague was new at it, say right around February or March, about a year ago, imagine the one who was so frustrated because they couldn't get this thing to work, or how many times you had to say, hey, you got to unmute. See, they had access to the resource, but some of them really didn't know how to work the settings, how to do certain things. So there's a difference between access to a resource and knowing how to use it. So, Professor, those are just a couple of examples.
Excellent. Another issue is, as you mentioned, very 2 component, respect and trust is very important thing also. Any kind of relationship, I believe. Thank you. Very nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ed, I actually have a question that came in earlier via email, somebody from our previous audience, I think. So they're saying that relationship, or any kind of relationship at work or home or wherever, it has to be two-way. But sometimes even if somebody is trying, or he or she is trying, and something is not working, so or it gets blown away or thrown away at some point, so it must be done, must have to do with the other person. So he's saying that it's not only his fault or anything, but how can it be done properly at work, at home, whatever? Is it the same thing, or any input on that?
Sure, absolutely. And one of the things you heard me say earlier when I talked about let go of unhealthy relationships, right? It is that when it's all said and done, we can't control other people. So we got to let go of the notion that we could control other people. But what we do control are our own decisions, our own reactions. And because we control our own choices, our own reactions, let's work through that person's question. So they want to build a relationship with someone, but the other person's not interested in building a relationship with them. So now this is a time where you pause and you ask yourself, okay, is there a perception that I need to let go of? Is there a belief I need to let go of? And can I embrace this other person just at the bottom level of compassion for another human being? Maybe that person's going through something. Maybe that person's had some experiences. Maybe that person's been scarred and has trust issues. Maybe that person keeps people away from them because they've been burnt. You just don't know. You never know what a person's gone through until they've explained those things to you or you walked in their shoes. But what you can do is start real slow. You can be kind, you can be open, and then you begin to you pay attention to them. Make sure they're noticed. I'll give you a quick example. I remember we were in Paraguay maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. We're doing leadership training out there on one of John Maxwell's outreach missions. And I don't think the company that we went in to train knew that we were coming in until that morning. And this guy, the first part of the presentation, the training, this guy stood there like this, his arms folded, oh, okay, this guy's really angry. So I told the interpreter, I said, tell you what we got to do. I said, I got this one. I said, because his energy is going to turn everything upside down. And believe it or not, I was teaching on attitude, right? Me and buddy Mike Kip. And we're in there, and we got a translator. And so I asked this question. I already knew the answer to the question, but I asked the question anyway. I said, look, let me find out something. How does this company make its money? Now, this was an organization. They did like TVs, radios, consumer products, right? Consumer electronical products. And so they said, sales. This is the sales. We sell. And I said, okay, so-and-so. Now, you're the sales manager, right? Yes, I am. I am the sales manager. I said, okay. I said, so walk me through the process of closing a deal. When a person walks into your store, what happens? He perked up a little bit. He loosened up, and the guy goes in. He says, well, one of my guys will see the person come in. And he said, when people come into the store, they often think they want one thing, but we want them to see some other options, and they might come out with more than what they intended to get. I said, okay. So now I said, what if the person only has a budget and they only can afford this one thing? What do? He said, oh, that's no problem. We send them to the credit person. I said, okay, so how does that work? He says, well, the credit person will check the credit and get a line of credit for the store. I said, okay, so the credit person, now if they're denied credit, does that hurt the sale? Oh, yeah, that's a problem. I said, okay, I got you. I said, now imagine this. What if the person who's handling the credit has a really bad attitude? And that person your client, your prospect goes to this person, and the attitude turns them off. He said, that wouldn't be good. I said, why not? He said, they'll get mad and they'll leave the store. I said, right. I said, so, because we're teaching about attitude. I said, well, everybody has to work together. You need this person who is the person who gives credit to have the right attitude, just as you need your salesperson. And then I said, well, and I walked out back. I said, I got one more question. Who's responsible for hiring the people who work in sales and the credit? A little lady, she's just so sweet. She said, well, that would be me. I said, oh, and what do you do? I run human resources. And so everybody started laughing. This guy loosened up, right? And I had to say, well, he's in sales. He probably wants to get out and sell. He doesn't want to sit in a training. He wants to go make money, and his guys probably have a target that they have to meet, a quota that they have to meet. And so during our break, I said, let me take care of this guy. So sometimes you got to look, you got to listen, you got to care about them, you got to really process what's going on, and then you got to live it out, walk out, understand. And now you lead. And where I had to lead him in a very gentle way was to show him that everybody is important, even if they work in different areas. Because if the HR doesn't screen the applicant, then he doesn't have a person to interview to be a salesperson. And if the HR person doesn't screen who's going into that division, then we still have problems. So when you look at a company, and so hopefully I answered that person's question. There's some relationships, and let me be clear. There's some relationships that you just let go of, right? You're not going to be all things to everybody. And then there's some relationships that they're worth investing in. You just got to make sure that you go through the process. And when it's all said and done, don't sit back and beat yourself up because someone else's choice is not to want to connect with you. All right, next one's.
Yeah, anyone else? Ron, you have anything?
Ed, I do have a question. I'll just say to you and the listeners that yes, right on target. Relationships kind of form the basis of everything going forward effectively. I have a military background, and there are some of us from a military background who say that, hey, I use the big, bold, burly style of leadership that, hey, I'm in charge here. Let's move out, but only when I tell you to, kind of thing. And what I just described is very ineffective. Ed, one question I would ask you: it sounds like developing relationships to the extent that you have said. And I think in part it's adapting to the person. A question about inside the classroom and so forth. To me, it's listening to and adapting to a learning style, and it may be adapting to different people. Some of us may interpret that, if I'm hearing you correctly, Ed, gosh, that's going to take a lot of time, and I don't know that I have the time. I don't know that I maybe don't even want to take the time. How do you address whatever time it takes to develop a very genuine, connected relationship to that person who says, I just don't know that I even have the time, or maybe even not even the inclination to spend that amount of time?
Oh, absolutely, great question. So I remember years and years ago. Wow, like over 20 years ago. I go on a sales call. I was doing business development for UPS, and FedEx was my competition. And we were making a shift from focusing on box in the truck to overnights in the plane, with a focus on international shipping. And so I would go into the companies that I had. So I wanted to build a relationship with. I found who I needed. I found who the decision maker was. And now sometimes you don't have time to do all the studying and all the research on a person. So sometimes you go in. First, I let go of a limiting belief was, if I go in, they're not going to want to talk to me. If I go in, they're going to say I'm trying to solicit. I had to let go of those things, right? If I go in, if FedEx is such a great company, how can I compete? Let go of that stuff. Second thing I had to do, I had to have compassion. I had to care. So when I walk in, hey, how are you? How are things going when you use UPS? Oh, they're pretty good. I said, well, hey, by the way, do you do any international shipping? Well, yes, we do. I said, how's that working out? And the person said, oh, it's okay. Sometimes we got a few problems. I said, well, what happens? I asked the question. What happens if the package that you're trying to send overnight? I said, where are you shipping? She said, oh, we got some things we ship to Ireland. I said, what happens if it doesn't go through? Oh, that's not good. I said, oh, wow, why is it not good? I asked another question. I wanted to know. I tapped into the emotion. All right, fast forward. I said, I tell you what we're going to do. Would it be okay? Now, I read the body language. She was receptive, so I proceeded. Read the body language. All right, I didn't come in trying to sell anything. I just came in, just asked a couple questions, and gave her an overnight air bill that they could use as a sample. Tell you what, just so you can see how this works, just send a letter, say, hey, we're testing something out. Just use it. It's on me. If you got something you want to put in, just put it in there. So let them try it out. I wanted to create the experience. Then I had to do the follow through, which is really important. Right now, sometimes you don't have hours and hours, days and days, weeks and years, but what you can do, it doesn't take time to be compassionate. It's something you do. It doesn't take time to pay attention. You just pay attention. It doesn't take time to listen. You just listen. And now you process it quickly. And then you begin to walk out what you just learned, and then you begin to lead. And so in some situations, if the price is right, you'll make the time. If you got $1 million opportunity, you're not going to say, I just don't got the time. I remember watching a guy, last story, when I used to work for a company, now I'm going to date myself, called PageNet. It used to be a PageNet out of Washington in College Park. And I watched a colleague of mine, who this must have been in the 90s, a colleague of mine, he had took the time to build the relationship with the Washington Hospital Center. Now, back in those days, before cell phones were a thing, for people who weren't in business, everyone had pagers, and we did business-to-business sales. He took the time to cultivate a relationship with key players, and as a result, he built trust. And over time, everyone was impressed with his commission check, and now he got a commission check for like $30,000, and everyone said, wow, he made $30,000 off that deal. Now, you got to remember, this is back in the 90s. But what he did, he just built the relationship, little investment here, little investment here. And if the payoff is worth it, then plant the seed and nurture it. And so sometimes we got the quick hit, and sometimes we got to grow the bamboo, because we understand bamboo takes about 5 years to grow. But I guarantee you, bamboo is going to be stronger and weather more storms than some of your typical plants.
Ed, let me follow up. You've mentioned compassion several times. We sometimes hear lead from the heart. I certainly advocate that. But how do you mix the two? That is, lead with a firm resolve and lead with the heart or show compassion. To some of us, the two sound to be incompatible. That is, can I have a firm resolve, but yet still be compassionate? Can you help us through how that is done?
Absolutely. So when I'm working with my clients, I care about my clients. I care enough about them where I can be brutally honest and package the message in a sensitive, caring way. And so let's be really clear. You can be strong. That's like the iron fist. But with your iron fist, you want to have a touch of velvet, right? It's like when you have strong hands, but you hold the baby, right? Now, I'm not calling people babies, but leaders, we often have to have conversations that can make us uncomfortable. But if you really care, especially if you have to help transition a person, it's just not working out. If you care about the person enough and you realize there's no path to recovery, then it's your compassion for that person to say, we need to talk. And you might not like what I'm going to say, but I would do you a disservice if I allow things to continue the way they are going. And because I care, I need to be honest with you. And this is what I'm observing. Share with me what your perception on how things are going. And what makes you feel that it's going this way? Because I think I see it a different way. Now, some people will say, why are you being so mean? Other people will say, you know what? You care enough to be honest. I'll give you one more example. I remember I had to help a person see some things from a different perspective. And I said, well, I was working as an assistant principal at a high school. And I had a person, he would have been better served in a different profession. And we had to have, and it was a 2-year process. After a year and a half, he decided to make a different move. But one of the things I had to look at, because my compassion for the 150 people impacted by his work, I couldn't lose sight of the 150 because of the one. And some might say, well, hey, that's not really nice. Oh, it's very nice. I care about that 150 kids. And so I did, in a very nice way, very professional way, I tried to help the person grow, but it just was not working out. And we got the person the supports that they needed. made sure that me, and it wasn't me alone, but we had a team, but I led the team that had to work with the person. And so meanness can be a perception. Am I mean because I have to deal with a situation, or am I compassionate because I have to deal with a situation when a person's responsibilities aren't being fulfilled and it affects the others? Just like last one, Ron promised, you were in the military. If you got a person that's on your unit, and let's say you're in combat, all right, and if they're not doing what they need to do, let's say you got an air traffic controller, and they're busy on their phone, and their attention is everywhere else but on the radar. You gotta have a heart to heart with that person. Either something has to change because the other lives are at stake. So hopefully I answered it, Ron.
No, you did, Ed. And I don't want to dominate. I'm going to close out with one other question for you. And it's a matter of confronting people. I think that's what you just described. There's some people who are just uncomfortable with themselves to confront someone else. They think that confronting means being combative or argumentative, or it's an otherwise, I don't know how to maintain a relationship because this person may think because I'm confronting them that we are growing apart. I don't think that's what you're saying, Ed, but can you help us who just need some help with confronting and how do I show compassion? I don't think those terms are mutually exclusive. I don't think that's what you're saying, but help us through the compassion aspect of confronting someone.
All right, let me tell you. Now, there's some confrontations that you avoid at all costs. This is for you guys out here, if your wife has not, if your wife, I will be careful with this one, but let's say your wife has picked up a pound or two. You do not say, hey, honey, it looks like you picked up an ounce or two. Just leave it alone unless she asks you about something. Now, everybody else is fair game. All right. And so the way you handle that confrontation, first you got to frame it the right way. And first you got to deal with your own perceptions. You got to deal with your own stereotypes. And then remember, we're talking about you as a leader, not you as a colleague who's not in a leadership role. Because if you're going to step up into this leadership work, is not about you, but it's about the team. All right. And so then when we got to put that in our mind. It's not personal. It's never personal. So if you have if you have to help a person see something in a way that they're not quite seeing it, and it might appear to be confrontational, make it informational. And now focus on your data points. All right. So you give some examples. So just want to talk to you a little bit about such and such, but or another approach. Hey, I was looking at some of these figures here, and I'm trying to get a better understanding on why it is what it is. Can you help me understand how did this turn into that, and how did it get there? And then you sit back and you just listen. Now, I was looking for my book over here. I don't see it. It's called Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. As a leader, the way you diffuse confrontation, don't come off as a know-it-all. Don't come off trying to be tough, but say, hey, look, I need to talk to you for a few minutes. Look, we're going to schedule a time, and I want you to be prepared for the conversation we're going to have. And so I want to talk to you about, and whatever their responsibility is, whatever the problem is, maybe the problem is how they lead. Maybe the problem is their attitude. Maybe the problem is performance. And say, I want to have a conversation with you, and I don't want to catch you off guard. So at such and such day, at such and such time, we're going to sit down, and I want us just to talk. Give them a chance to be prepared. So you don't just dump on them. because that's you're not if you anytime you're dumped on and you haven't had a fair chance to prepare, right? It can be more confrontational. But then you just a matter of fact, and then you go back to the questions. All right, help me understand. I want to see it from your perspective. And then once they paint the picture and you see that picture a different way, you say, well, I hear you, and I'm looking at this, but wasn't this supposed to be taken care of 2 months ago? What's been the problem with getting it done? Because sometimes as a leader, someone might tell you something that you totally didn't see, and they could have saved you a bigger problem that they didn't want to come tell you about. But if you didn't give them the opportunity by creating a safe environment to speak freely to you, you might go through and confront someone. And if the confrontation is perceived as being intimidating or hostile, all right, and they don't feel comfortable enough to talk with you, you might wind up losing a good person or crushing the spirit of a good person. And so we always want to be the ultimate ambassador, right? And that's how we do it.
Great job. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Jillur, can I ask some questions? Thank you. Ed, this is great. I'm enjoying all the powerful languages. And the reason is that, let me first tell you one thing. Your last name is Reed, and that reminds me of my Johns Hopkins Reed Hall, where we stayed when we were doing MPH, and then subsequently even before that. So the last name means the Reed Hall came to my mind, and I was wondering, you come from that family of the Reed, maybe. Okay, so my life started as like chief of the small urban clinic, and fortunately, subsequently, wherever I have worked, I have been the number one in that office. I may have boss, but boss lives somewhere else, project director or something. So sitting in that position, if I take your 7 L's, the most difficult one, there may be others, is the let go. When you are talking about let go, you say you let go is control others or toxic relationship and other things. So being head of the institution, you have a responsibility to deliver your goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see that all your staff or all your co-workers are delivering their goods to the extent, or you end up doing their work, right? If they're weak, okay, USAID is funding, and here is a boss sitting in the USAID office or the Pathfinder office, and I have to deliver my goods because I'm responsible. At the same time, my staff are responsible equally to deliver things. So in those situations, how much control you have, how much you can let go, and how do you avoid the toxic relationship when you expect something from people? I know that we have nice positive things, but at the same time, sitting on a chair, you also face not so positive environments. And how do you deal with that? I mean, that's part of life. Some people will become very jealous. Some people will look at your chair and it's, when can I push her and I sit on that chair? There are many circumstances that you all know, and I have faced throughout my life, but I have overcome in most of the time. But always have been a learning experience. So from your lifetime experience, and now that you are even such an excellent speaker on those, just lighten up to some extent that when you get adverse environment, and what are those adverse situations, and how do you overcome those? How do you teach yourself to overcome those?
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Great question. And then I'm gonna get you to mute so we don't have to echo. There you go.
Yes, I'm doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hey, love that question. And so, first of all, let me make sure I got it right. You give me a thumbs up if I got it right. And that is, sometimes when you're at that number one slot, right? It's that how do you let go of some of those toxic relationships? And when you have deliverables, and you have people who are going to hold you accountable to deliver. And so how do you navigate that space is what I'm hearing. Right. And when you want to be positive and you want to be upbeat and you want to build healthy relationships, well, one of the things you want to do first is there's certain beliefs that we're going to let go of. And that is the belief that you can control others. The reality, now you can influence people, but you can't control them. All right. If you can control them, they're robots, not people. But you can influence them. And everybody has options. And so one of the things that we do in building the relationship, it's more about us than it is others. Am I compassionate? Am I fair? Am I paying attention? Do I have the facts that I need to have before I make a decision? What don't I see that I need to see? What haven't I heard that I need to hear? Or what am I hearing and what's left out? Right. So now when we're going into that relationship, and remember I said sometimes you got to let go of unhealthy relationships. Well, you become the conduit of saying perhaps there might be some people that we have to let go of because it's going to create a toxic situation for the rest of the organization. All right. But you before you let go of the person, or you got to make sure that you've done your part where I'm not operating out of malice. I've given this person the opportunity. I've given this person some feedback. They've had a chance to grow. I've provided growth opportunities for this person. Because some people might be in a situation and they don't know how to get out of it. And out of your compassion, if they're not willing to grow, then it's our duty to help them go. All right. And I don't mean to sound mean or anything like that, but sometimes you're doing a person a service after you come at it with the right spirit. Right. And now you might be in a situation where it's a little bit more difficult to let a person to help a person transition. So then you got to go back and you look at there's the expectations question. Let's have a conversation about what do you expect out of me? This is what I expect out of you. Are we misaligned in our understanding of your expectations of me and my expectations of you? Hey, I like you as a person. You're great to sit down, have a cup of coffee with. Sometimes we can laugh and joke, but there's work that has to be done because we have deliverables. How can I help you? And I go back to what I said to Ron. You talk around the data. Hey, there's nothing personal. Let's just look at the data. All right. Now I can show you a way that didn't work. I remember I gave you an example working in sales. Well, I remember there's one guy, he hit a sales slump. And he was like the company guy. He had all these awards. He had the best office, but he missed his number 2 months in a row. And the team I was working with, they said they were going from gross sales to net gains. And I'll never forget this. We're all in this huge conference room, and the guy comes in, he puts his foot on, he's a big guy, and he put his foot on the conference table. He said, things are changing. Let me tell you what's going to happen. He said, we don't care what you did yesterday. We don't care what you did a year ago. If you can't hit your number, then this isn't the place for you. And this is where he was unprofessional. When he said, if you don't believe us, go ask your boy Art. Now, a lot of us, I was 130% of my quota every month. But he led from fear and intimidation versus from compassion and encouragement. So what happened, those of us who were good at what we did, we went for the BBD, bigger, better deals. All right. And we left. And so what we do as a leader, we have deliverables, and we have to be able to give people help. I think it's a leader's responsibility to help cultivate additional leaders. Who's on the bench? Who's in the pipeline? So we have the responsibility to create the atmosphere that will cultivate growth. But we also have the responsibility to look at who is not willing to grow when we need to keep growing. And now that reluctant, that decision not to move forward with the team becomes an opportunity to say, hey, I'm comfortable where I am. You guys keep going. And sometimes you got to let folks know the bus has left the station and we can't make loop back around to pick you up. And so you got to decide, are you on board or not? Nothing personal, but make sure you have your data points together. You know, have your examples. And if the person, you never want a person to come at you and say, well, I didn't do this because this environment here. Because here's what happens too. If we fail to address the toxic people on the team, the non-toxic people who don't want to be contaminated, they get off, they leave. And you don't want to leave your superstar. You don't want your superstars to go. Remember this, the old Pareto principle as well, right? That 20% of the people, right, produce 80% of the results. And what we know is great people always have options. There are three levels. There are the people who are really strong. They're going, no matter how bad the situation is, these are your power relationships. They're with you. Hey, I got you. We're going to get through this. Then there's the people. I just hope they don't ask me what I'm doing. I'm just trying to coast here. I'm just coasting. And then there's that bottom tier that you're always saying, look, come on, I need you to step it up. And what happens is that very few from the bottom tier will jump into the middle. But what you want to do is create an atmosphere where those in the middle aren't dropping to the bottom, but they're excited to be cultivated. Like the CEO of Nike, what she said, one of the things you do, hire great people. She said, you want a strong organization? Hire great people. You know, if you look at Lou Holtz, I believe it was, coach. John Maxwell asked Coach Lou, he said, well, what's your strategy to have so many winning championships? He said, I get great athletes. All right. And so we start on the front end. We build great teams. Then when you build a strong team, you don't have to worry. But the thing that I'll say, that I got a lot of energy around this one, and that is with leaders that I've worked with, I've often shared with them. I said, look, you got to set the expectation on the front end, so you're not trying to play clean up an explanation on the back end. If I set the expectation on the front end, we got a new assignment. Hey, look, team, we got a new thing we have to do. Let me be really clear. These are the things that have to be done. These are my expectations of you. What are your expectations of me? And I think one of the challenges that some leaders run into, they get stuck at, when you go back and read the 5 levels of leadership, and they get stuck at level 1, which is authority by position. And they think that it's okay to say, you need to do this and you need to do that. I'm in charge and blah, blah, blah. And the people, you know how we've all been there. There's the person who's so happy to be in charge and want to let you know they're in charge, and then nobody respects. And then there's the person, right? And I'm not working at a university, but I have friends who've worked at universities, and they'll say, oh my goodness, I'm just waiting for the person to stop so we can go do what we got to do. Now, I'm sure your universities don't have that problem, but there are some universities that I know that have that problem. So we set the expectation. And after we set the expectation, we reference. So if you're taking notes, set the expectation, reference the expectation, have discussions around how are we going to measure if expectations are being met, and what do we need to change to exceed expectations, with the understanding the expectation is the floor, is not the ceiling. Hopefully I answered the question.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm a Hopkins alum. I have my postmaster's degree from Hopkins.
Oh, wow. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. You know that then.
No, one thing to add, this is a lot of learning. It needs to be absorbed properly. That's my understanding. You went fast through it, but I can understand that understanding it would really help somebody in their relationship in all around. One thing I gather, because of we are already over time, just a couple of things, and then we need to end, is that you need to change how you're thinking, how you're doing. So that's one of the things that I know. So which, of course, Albert Einstein's, doing the same thing and expecting over and over, and doing the same thing over and over and expecting different result is insanity. So there definitely that's the case. No question about it. One thing that also came to my mind, that one of the things that I think at some point we discussed was that Jim Rohn talked about, there are only about half a dozen things that make 80% of the difference in any area of life. I believe that relationship is one of them for sure, because that can influence a lot. That's from my end. There was some questions on how the relationship affected you on your personal or career or in work life for 2020, the COVID situation. Going forward, what we're going to do, but in the interest of time, we cannot get into that discussion as of now, but we'll do it at some other point. But wanted to thank you, Ed, sincerely for the contribution, for the things that you just explained, and I hope people listen to it, and usually people listen to it on a recording version, and thankful for that. Hopefully that will help them. And if there's any question, anything that comes to your mind, the audience, you are listening to it now or later, please feel free to send it along to any of us or to info@unexleadership.com. In fact, Ron is a relationship coach here who has a course actually, which is vouched by many people already, that how it helps other and how he's been using it for professionally. So having said that, of course, he is a person in personal relationship and everywhere, and he talks about it in his talk. He's doing a talk, fighter pilot, mindset, I believe in one of the meetups also, with Glenn Hodges in Chattanooga meetup group. So those I attended one of them. It's excellent. But I'm just saying that be open and be in these forums or discussions and be actively involved, so this can help. And the people that you have in front of you today are definitely, I am grateful for. In fact, that's what I wrote down. And then what I'm grateful for today is being in front of them in association with these people today. And of course, learning from the 7 L's of relationship from Ed. So thank you, Ron, Dr. Jamaluddin, Dr. Halida, and especially Ed. Thank you very much for your time and your inspiration and the things that we learned.
Well,
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed very much. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank